Let's start kind of with Swift, who was the number one prospect for many people. Me and you both kind of said Taylor was our two favorites, but Swift is up in at least the top three for most lists of people. But he goes to Detroit, kind of a gross landing spot. Is this a guy that, even though the new home isn't great, could still thrive because he's that good? Or how did he kind of measure up in your studies here?
Yeah, after Taylor, pre-draft, after Taylor, I really I swear to God, I could have thought like any of those backs would be number two. I could have I looked at my rankings like for probably 4 hours and adjusted like the top five a billion times. And honestly, then I just gave up because I loved, the top five of this class so much. But yeah, DAndre Swift, the landing spot, we'll get to that in a second. But as a player, I just absolutely loved him. It's hard not to, honestly. I mean, he just does everything well. He doesn't have necessarily one standout trait. Like Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a better route runner and probably a little more shifty than Swift, but Swift can win at all three phases. He was a fantastic pass blocker, does not get nearly enough credit for how good of a pass blocker he was. And he doesn't get enough credit for I think he can be a sustaining back in the NFL. I don't think we're going to see DAndre Swift get like a Zeke workload where he gets like 300 carries, but I think DAndre Swift should, I don't know if he will, but I think he should easily command 225 to 250 carries there in Detroit this year. DAndre Swift, it was one of the most consistently creative backs I've ever charted. Georgia's offensive line was fantastic. They were number two in the class in yards blocked per attempt. But DAndre Swift was just consistently great. He created 5 or more yards on 34% of his carries at Georgia this past year, and that's like in the same tier as like Alvin Kamara, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Sony Michel, who we talked about, Kareem Hunt, in terms of like consistently creating yards on his own. Swift was obviously very elusive too. He finished third in this class in missed tackles forced per attempt. Only Edwards-Helaire and Zach Moss were more efficient and better at making defenders miss. The only concern I really have, and this isn't really a long-term concern for Swift because I'm not entirely sure their coaching staff will be there in 2021, but at least for this season, Darrell Bevell doesn't throw the ball to his running backs at all. I went back and looked at his history, and Darrell Bevell has only had one running back where he's given more than 60 targets. Oh. Now, granted, he had a lot of really good runners on his teams. He had Adrian Peterson. He had Marshawn Lynch, and neither of those guys are great pass catchers. They're definitely run-first guys, but we wanted DAndre Swift to land in, frankly, like Kansas City or Tampa Bay, a team we know was going to get him the ball as a pass catcher. And now we've got this weird committee situation where Swift will be at, a 1A, 1B to Kerryon Johnson, and then we don't know if he's necessarily going to get the ball in the passing game. Nick, I think, the Lions might be tipping their hand that they're going to try and get Swift more involved as a pass catcher. I mean, you don't draft a running back like DAndre Swift without a plan in place to, give the running back more targets. So I hope if the idea of rational coaching and rational player development makes sense, it would make sense that Darrell Bevell kind of changes his colors a little bit and gives his running backs the ball a little bit more in the passing game. But based on the history, that's not necessarily something I'm going to be projecting in year one, especially with a talented back like Kerryon Johnson there